Hi, I'm Kerry Ann Gordon, and I just want to welcome you to our introduction to our Movement Facilitators course. This course offers our teachers 15 CPTD points, and it is the first in our learning track that can qualify you as a movement facilitator trainer yourself. Why would you want to take Movement Facilitators 101? Well, this course is for anyone who would like to experience peak performance in their life, whether you're the student, the teacher, the learner, the parent, a businessman, a sportsperson, or somebody who's just wanting to experience better performance in their life in general. During this course, we will teach you all 26 movements that address the physical skills of learning. You often hear me talk about these movements. Well, these are the design movements. These movements are obviously easy and enjoyable for all people, adults, children, and the elderly. And they can bring about much change in focus, organization, comprehension, coordination, communication, memory, and much more. As we are able to move through our 3 midlines in life, we are able to activate the different parts of our brain. And yes, you heard me right, there are 3 midlines that a person must move through in order to be ready for school and for success. And so our first midline allows us to activate the first functional area of the brain, which is all about focus and comprehension, which is all about participation or withdrawal. If I'm stuck in my forwards motion, I could be stuck on the detail, whereas if I'm stuck in my backwards motion, I could be procrastinating and avoiding things, withdrawing rather than engaging in learning. Our second functional area has all to do with centering and organization, and of course we need to connect our heart with our brain, our thoughts in this place. While our third functional area is one that we know lots about and tend to focus on without appreciating the first 2. But yes, it is very important, this third functional area, as 2 sides of the brain can communicate with each other, as well as the brain is in communication then with the rest of the body. Some of the objectives for this course. We will be experiencing our 4-step warm-up, also called PACE, to prepare us for optimal learning. We can then identify how the brain and body cooperate together in a learning flow and what happens when we're under stress. We also will be exploring different physical movements and noticing their effects on the physical, the mental, and the emotional systems. We then are going to be able to take these moves that we've experienced ourselves into our life to use with our children, with our spouses, with our colleagues, or even with ourselves, so that we can experience peak performance. Stress and sitting still while learning. So why have I put these 2 together, stress and sitting still? Well, sitting still while learning in actual fact is a stress. We are made to move, and movement develops the brain. It helps regulate our emotions, and it then strengthens the body so that this all can work together to benefit the person. Just want to share these beautiful images from Dr. Chuck Hillman, a kinesiologist who did this whole study to show teachers why cutting recess or breaks and cutting subjects such as physical education are obviously at the detriment to learning and their own children. And for this reason, yes, break detentions is going to also be a problem if you consider that this picture that stands now in front of us. So let's just get into it a little bit here. He took 20 students and he did MRIs on their brains. And of course, we've got these beautiful pictures to just demonstrate what is happening in the little one's brain when they are sitting still in classrooms, supposedly learning, versus after they've been offered movement, in this case, 20 minutes of walking. And so if red and orange are presenting here in this picture as places of the brain with the most activity, well, when this little one was sitting still and learning, there wasn't much taking place. What I do want you to also take note of, because we're going to chat about this for a little bit, is the fact that he's got more activity happening on the left-hand side, his left hemisphere, and some, but very little activity on the right-hand side. He's also got a lot of activity towards the back of his head and some towards the front. Having moved for a bit, yes, this child is not completely equal on both sides. However, More left brain, of course, in this picture, but has better access now to all the skills that take place in that right hemisphere, as that right hemisphere has now lit up and we're seeing some yellows, some oranges, and obviously some reds taking place. So let's just consider all what stress does. So stress while learning results in fight or flight thinking as the brain moves into survival. Children's brains will reorganize themselves in a unique way called a profile, and of course it does this to do its best to cope under stress. What happens under stress? As cortisol rises, so does the blood sugar, and of course the immune system is weakened every time a child is put into fight or flight. The body on alert, trying to protect itself rather than to rest and digest. And when this is taking place, learning simply cannot happen. Just look back at those two pictures and just look at how much blue we are seeing in that first picture, the first MRI. Really not much activity at all to be taking in and processing the information in order to recall it later. What makes this worse is when we start talking about something called a retained primitive reflex, which are spontaneous moves done by the body. And of course, when this happens, the person or the child feels as though they are in danger and so is thrown back into this fight or flight thinking. What causes stress? So as I just said, sitting still for too long. The body is made to move. And as the body moves, it activates the brain to move. And while it's activating certain parts of the brain for movement, so it's activating those same parts that are actually needed for reading and writing and spelling and educational work. Perceived danger and feeling unsafe. So quite a lot happening in that picture. And it was really just to explain how the body responds. As information comes in, the body's got to decide very quickly, and of course this is the amygdala's job to do so. Am I in danger or am I safe? If I'm in danger, obviously all my survival skills are needed, but if I'm safe, I can relax and I can process and I can take in. But what is this danger? And the word perceived is so important here. So yes, it perhaps long time ago used to be the lion that was going to attack us. And so if a lion was going to attack me, I'd need to run away, flight, or I'd need to try and defend myself, fight. And I've just included in this picture here, you can see the response and how it might look as we deal with people. The mom or the teacher there really bending forward and fighting with the little one. So there's the fight response, the aggressive outburst. And the flight, this seeming, this tendency to seem to withdraw or run away or hide or avoid, and so procrastinate or do whatever I can to get out of the situation till I feel safe. And of course that represented by the little boy who's shivering and shaking there in his boots. What this means is that a test can be a perceived danger. A speech can be a perceived danger. Somebody raising their voice in a certain way can be perceived as a danger. Somebody who's very scared of birds, with pigeons living or roosting in a roof of a classroom, that can be perceived by the body as danger. And so all these things will then throw or put this person back into this fight or flight survival profile, which doesn't allow for adequate learning. Okay, lack of oxygen, and of course we've just come through this pandemic and we are wondering why learning didn't take place at these times when there were such wonderful initiatives done by teachers for online teaching. But of course, when the body is not able to take in air, oxygen is the most important thing for survival. Without oxygen, I will die very quickly, whereas I can wait a little bit longer without water and food. But yes, if the body is not registering getting enough oxygen, it throws the body into stress. It also, just think of when you are stressed, what happens to your breathing, which is kind of a vicious circle, because as I can't breathe because I'm panicking and I'm breathing even more shallowly, if that's said right, or more quickly, I am throwing my body into greater sense of danger because I'm not getting adequate oxygen in. Changes in the body, changes in temperature. Haven't you noticed how the children are always so much more boisterous on a day where it's extra cold or extra hot? Also changes in blood sugar levels and the sorts throw the body into this understanding that there is perhaps something that's dangerous taking place. And our big one, our retained primitive reflexes. Our retained primitive reflexes were put there for two reasons. One, our most important one, for survival. The first one that I've just come to show you there is this little one, breathing. Has to do a lot with breath, our first retained or our first primitive reflex. They're also there to assist children in the development, so in their developmental milestones. Whenever these are triggered because they haven't been integrated into the system and given way for voluntarily moving or being able to move voluntarily, so they are interrupting the flow of the information coming in from the senses while putting children into fight or flight. Anxiety is a big symptom of our fear paralysis reflex, and so whenever we see anxiety in our children, we straight away want to check our fear paralysis reflex and our Mora reflex. I just want to share with you some of the ways in which we could uniquely organize our brain and what this would mean for these two particular children, why this is so important. But for the means of this course, what is possibly taking place in some of the children's brains while you're sitting trying to teach. So let's pretend this is Peter and we've done an OBO profiling on him and we've been able to map out the brain organization. So again, going back to the picture that we were supplied by Dr. Chuck Hillman, if we had to color in this little boy's brain, we would see that the right side would be the part where we'd have more activity. And if we could understand which eye and ear and hand he's all using, we would notice these ones standing out, let's pretend, for little Peter. The lovely thing about our OBO work and about our brain is that our brain is so fantastic. It reorganizes itself differently for different tasks. And this is why our OBO work is one way in which we could figure out for each situation, for even each subject, what this child is doing when they are stressed. And so let's take a look. Our green eye and ear connect with our green side of our head here, our green brain in this little brain bag, while our orange hand and foot needs to or should connect with the orange or the left hemisphere there. And so under stress you can see that this little Pete, can only access the right side of his brain while he is using these particular hands and feet and ears as the leading feet, hand, foot, and ear. And of course, being able to map this out, I can understand a whole lot from this already. And so little Peter, under stress, well, shame, he can see. So his green eye and green ear are connected with the green there. So let me just give you there. There we go. And he can see the bigger picture. He can see colors. He can see shapes. And he is hearing the emotional stuff. So how things are said rather than what is said. So even though he can see and hear, because those two are available to talk to the right side of the brain, the green ear means that when mom or when the teacher is upset, he's going to be able to pick that up in the tone of their voice. So it doesn't matter how nicely they're talking and what words they're choosing, he might become quite stressed when mom is talking a lot faster and getting quite agitated. Okay. His hand and his foot cannot communicate with the other side of the brain. And so he's not going to be able to communicate his feelings or what he understands. And he's not going to know how to move forward literally and figuratively. Literally, quite literally, if you have a worksheet in front of this little Peter, he's not going to know where to start and where to go next. When he is calm, however, we can understand this profile quite differently. And we will see that actually when he's calm, he will be able to communicate the facts. And he will be able then to work through his worksheet quite methodically, even though he's processing stuff in a very intuitive movement space, needing to really understand things through the experience that he's having. Another little issue coming up for poor little Peter is that his hand and eye are different. And so he's going to battle with hand and eye coordination, especially when stressed. And the eye that he's using tracks right to left as opposed to left to right. And so poor little Peter's going to have problems when he needs to read information in the class, and his eye might jump. Let's look at little Susan. Very similar, same hand, same foot, same eye, same ear, but different brain hemisphere here. And so little Susan's hand and feet can speak to her left brain, which is a very logical way of processing things. And so when she's stressed, she can actually speak, and she will communicate the details, which have been very logically processed and of course gone through the sequencing and the methods and the techniques and looking at the detail. She will be able to move forward, and of course she will do this in a very step-by-step manner. However, she cannot see and she cannot hear, and so that's going to be a big problem, because taking in information in this instance is going to be a huge problem. And so although she can communicate and move forward, she might be able to answer that test question. If the teacher has to say, look up and I have to add in extra work here, I'm drawing on the board a picture, or if she's giving a verbal instruction, little Susan in this state is not going to be able to take that in. Susan also, when she's not stressed, she will see the bigger pictures, colors and shapes. She will listen to how things are said as opposed to what is said. So again, if the other ear is not working with this ear, we talk about supporting our leading ear, it's going to be very hard to hear the individual letters as she learns her phonics. And so can you imagine the power of being able to do this for every single learner in your class in a matter of minutes, as well as you as a teacher, so that you know when you're under stress what to look for. These type of things we're going to, I'll share it with you just now, but this comes from our OBO course, so Optimal Brain Organization course. So I just wanted to show you, these are our little domino men from Carla Hannaford's course called the Dominance Factor, very similar to our OBO work. We can use these profiles, understanding these profiles, to help in marriages. It's also important to know if you've got the same profile, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to work well together. And in her book, The Dominance Factor, Carla Hannaford also shares how this is so powerful in the classroom with a real life experience where there was a student who had a blocked eye but a functional ear when stressed, and so in algebra she would close her eyes and turn her head to hear the instruction, whereas the teacher had a blocked ear but was able to see, and so he'd keep moaning at this little one to open up her eyes and have a look at what he was showing. So of course what we need to understand, and what Carla came in with, was that this teacher really, when he was stressed, needed to allow for the student to do that, close her eyes and really zone in what she's hearing, while he needed to ensure that his instructions, his verbal instructions, were clear. And of course, there was much better success having done all of this. So courses, again, if you want to learn about this stuff, we've got Carla Hannaford's course called The Dominance Factor. Mindful Moves offers a workshop called 2 Left Feet and has 5 CPTD points. And of course, our Optimal Brain Organization is a very, very thorough course. The little brain bugs that you saw on the previous page come from there, and they offer 15 CPTD points. From that little sidetrack, what I want you to understand is that this is how we're sitting under stress or when not learning. This is what we want. We want to be able to access our gifted space, no matter what that is, and have a leading side with a supporting side. So in the second picture, you can see the left side might be leading, but now the right side is supporting whatever this child is doing with the left. So again, just a reminder, stress also means sitting quietly for too long without movement, whereas movement activates the brain. And so what do we need? Movement, movement, movement. Movement shifts a person from their profile to whole brain thinking. We speak about this also as what is referred to as the learning flow, which we cover in this course. And so the learning flow is really about being on track. So the black lazy 8 there represents being on track. You've got a little arrow that tells you where to start. And our green represents the things that we know, the things that we understand already, the things that have been put in place. It's our comfort zone. It is our resources. And so we need to have resources in terms of our own resources, our skills and our knowledge that we've developed. Resources in terms of the support system, whether that be my mom, my dad, my teacher, my peers, my colleagues. And then, of course, resources within the environment, so the physical resources, having Google, having the internet, having books, having stationery, so that I am able to move from this green side over to learning the new things. So the orange side, I move around as I'm comfortable and ready to keep going. I then can cross over and learn something new. Here I'm getting used to new things. I'm moving slower here because I'm going to stop, I'm going to think, I'm going to create possibilities, I'm figuring things out, I'm taking them apart, I'm making a plan, I'm looking at the details, and I'm going step by step. And as I move through this right-hand side, so that begins to become more natural, more part of who I am, more part of my actual learning. And as it does that, I pack it back over to be a part of my resources, the skills again that I know. And so this is not a flat lazy 8, but instead it's a lazy 8 that builds up as I learn new things and pack them back onto or into myself, investing in myself by developing these skills. So very important to be within the black, on track, moving smoothly, but we can easily fall off this little road on each side. If I am too nervous to move forward, I tend to get stuck in the green side, which is my comfort zone. And when I get stuck on this side, I start to feel bored. I also start to procrastinate and I feel not motivated, less likely to really get started. I can get upset and very emotional, distracted, confused. I may feel stuck. So when you hear a person say, I feel trapped, I feel stuck, that's often because they're just circling the known in their comfort zone, too afraid to actually learn something new, to take the chance, to be curious, to make mistakes. Because as we move over to that orange side, we've got to be ready to make mistakes. And mistakes need to be appreciated as part of a learning experience. So as I'm able to move over, I can then shift to the orange. If I come off track on the orange side, that's when I feel like things are out of my control. I start trying harder. I feel like I can't stop. I am worried. I'm anxious. I'm tense. I'm scared. I need to move my body to rid myself from that stuff. And my thoughts are racing. So I can get absolutely lost in these racing thoughts of absolute panic. And so, yes, to be able to get back into this learning flow, I need to calm the system down. I need to tell myself there's no danger. And I need to be able to move so that I can just help this brain activate so that it can process all the things taking place. So what are the benefits of introducing these designed moves into our life? So very interestingly, educational kinesiology was originally developed for children with learning difficulties, but it has been successfully used with people of all ages to improve the following: sports, the arts, motivation, self-development, learning problems, so to help with those, and even to help with behavioral problems. And so while we just touch on the history in this course of Dr. Paul Dennison and Gail Dennison, and obviously how this work all came together, our NIM course takes a lot more time to explain this background knowledge and why it is that these work so well. Our designed moves create stress-free learning for teachers, parents, and children. Can be used to improve reading, writing, spelling, maths, communication, organizational skills, and discipline. They can be done in less than 5 minutes. There is no equipment needed. It applies to any learning situation. It adapts well with any curriculum or teaching style. It is self-directed and a quick way to intentionally activate one's highest performance potential. Increases self-esteem, produces long-term and demonstrable results, and promotes responsibility for oneself while creating an atmosphere that honors a person's unique, powerful abilities and potential. As a teaser, let me just show you some of our moves. What can they do and why do I want to use them in the class? So from our first functional area, I absolutely love the calf pump. This here we use for improved attention, planning and anticipating closure in written and spoken language. Very good for visual and auditory closure. Enhances short-term memory, comprehension in reading and listening, follow through and task completion. I've heard so many parents and teachers complaining about that. We want to bring this in. Motivation to participate, the enhanced ability to communicate and respond, as well as creative and expressive writing ability, and to be able to relax while focusing. From our second functional area, I'm sharing with you the brain buttons. Very good for sensory processing, eye movement for reading, keeping one's place when reading, enhances energy levels, improves eye teaming, directionality when reading, balance between the left and the right sides of the body. From our third functional area, I absolutely love the elephant, all to help with auditory discrimination, speech for reading out loud, decoding, which is the deciphering of symbols, reading itself, encoding, spelling and putting it together for writing, blending the symbols, short-term and long-term memory, depth perception, eye teaming, regulating one's speaking voice, integrating looking, integrated listening, and an enhanced sense of balance. In this course, we're also going to teach you some combinations to use for particular skills, such as primary writing skills. Yeah, we can use our arm activation, the double doodles, lazy eights, and alphabet eights. And these are going to help with hand and eye coordination, drawing in the left, the right, the upper, the lower visual fields, and this will be both for penmanship as well as for cursive writing. Some of our courses, and of course you're welcome to get hold of us if you want to find out more about these. NIM, as I said, a really short course, all about the background of our work. Also great for explaining why movement is so important with learning. Great for teachers, great for parents, great for teachers who need to share with parents why it is that we need to move with learning. Movement facilitators, as shared within this short presentation. Brain Gym 101, very important to learn our 5-step procedure or process, which helps people deal with stress so that they can achieve their goals in life and really start challenging some limiting beliefs that could be stopping them from all that awaits. Optimal brain organization follows on from Brain Gym 101 and teaches you how to map profiles, so unique brain profiles, and then allows you to use the 5-step process to shift some of these limiting profiles. Hands-on, a brilliant course put together by a remedial teacher and occupational therapist who are also educational kinesiologists and have used this work in their space, so within remedial teaching and occupational therapy, to really just have that edge when it comes to working with kids. And so this course offers you to do the same as they share which moves they use and how they bring it in really quickly in sessions using games and songs and the like. Great for teaching reading, writing and arithmetic. And of course this course focuses on that while allowing teachers to experience the work firsthand so they can see the shift take place within themselves. Two Left Feet, a short little workshop talking about how children again think under stress. Fundamentals Reading and Writing talks about, particularly in this one, the pre-skills to reading and writing, as well as offers parents and teachers a movement program, and of course assessment tools, and of course ideas for activities to ensure that everything is in place for children to be ready to read and write. Unpacking Behavior, born from a teacher asking for some help with regards to your child and his particular behavior. And of course we then explored everything from personality to reflexes to stress and our children to our love languages and more. Solutions to impaired concentration, looking at everything that results in the symptom of lack of focus or lack of the ability to concentrate. And why is this a symptom? What is the cause for what we are seeing? Autism is short course, about 3-hour course with some beautiful points offered as we again look at it from our point of view as educational kinesiologists and those working with retained primitive reflexes. And our movement-based short course, which again is a really quick overview of why movement is really the beginning of learning.